Well, howdy, everybody, and welcome to Unloose the Goose, episode 49. This is my first time with StreamYard. Jack was running it last time, so, give me a little grace today if I don't highlight people, right? We've got 4 geese on today. We've got John Bush back with us after a crazy move to the country with a fun thing to announce that he's doing next week. We have Neethi Bali from Farm to Fork Meat Riot. We've got Xavier Hawk, whose baselines are coming back out again.
All right.
People were like freaking out that baseline wasn't coming back. I don't know if you saw that chatter. And then I'm Nicole Sauce.
I was on a road trip from hell.
Yes. Maybe you'll talk about your road trip from hell. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but we're going to dive down in onto the victim mindset. The reason I brought that up today is that I'm seeing a lot of people talking about how conspiracy theories are happening and we're all going to be killed, and that's a really good way to make that come true. So I wanted to talk about just ways that we are programming ourselves for doom rather than programming ourselves for success. Before we do that, though, what's everybody drinking? Xavier, what do you got?
Kratom.
John's got Kratom.
I don't have anything at this moment.
Xavier is not drinking anything. We did drive him to the mead last time. Neethi, what do you have?
I'm just drinking water.
Good old H2O.
I have carbonated Holler spring water. We're a lively group. I do have a backup here, though. The bottle of brandy's not far if I need it. So it depends on how far.
In case things get lively. Yeah,
just in case they get in case. Great. Okay, so our first thing to talk about is the News Buster segment, where we look at news articles, and I wanted to bring up this article I found on ABC News about pork apocalypse, bacon apocalypse that's coming to California. Can somebody tell us what that's about?
Well,
I can if nobody else is.
I believe it's part of this effort. Is it all part of the sustainability push, environmentalism, to try to limit carbon output by restricting people's access to meat, which is also part of the Great Reset, I should say, and this effort to create fake meat?
Well, that's very possible that could be linked in. So California has enacted legislation requiring that pigs have more space in how they're raised, so more humanely raised pigs. And as we know, in the meat factories, like factory farms, pigs are treated horribly, and they're packed in, and they're bred in these cages where they can't really move. And so California enacted legislation requiring that pigs have more space. And if farmers do not retool and give pigs more space, that pork is not allowed to be sold in California. It can be sold anywhere else in the country, but not California. And that was, I think, passed a year or two ago, maybe a little bit longer. And now it's about to be put in place, and the farmers didn't change their practices.
Take that, new scene.
Guess what's going to happen?
This is them trying to push CAFOs. Actually, is this supposed to be the greenwashing? This is greenwashing, I think. Yeah. I think this is greenwashing versus just actually supporting regenerative farms, which is also could have just been easier, which they don't. They create so much interference for regenerative pork generally to even find its way to market. We're not allowed to get into the market. But so anything that's legit, honoring and respecting the beast and nature, we're not allowed to get into the market. And they're trying to also collapse the centralized system, which I wrote about in my book. Actually, I said they're going to do this, and then they just did it. So that's what's happening. They're collapsing the system.
So the thing that was interesting to me about the article is they interviewed farmers at factory farms at CAFOs, and the amount of money that needs to be invested to give pigs more space is a lot. It's like millions of dollars for one farm, and then they also can't raise as many pigs. It's just the way the math works out. from my perspective of how you should raise pigs, it's not a bad idea to give pigs more space, but it would be an even better idea to raise them like Joel Salatin does, where they get to be outside on grass and rotate around and live like a pig.
Yeah.
So
better life, better meat, better life for the pigs, better meat for the humans.
So this was sold with that bucolic vision in mind, and people aren't realizing that you're still supporting inhumane treatment of pigs if you're buying factory farm pigs, even if they have more space. But what's going to happen to the market in California is bacon's going to go up in price. And now people around the country have read about this, and guess what they're doing?
What are they doing?
Bacon. They think it's going to push up the price everywhere. So California is responsible for 25% of the bacon market or the pig market. And those farmers have lost that market. What should that do to pork everywhere else? Economics 101, John Bush. What do you think that would do?
Raise the price.
It'll raise it in California. What will it do everywhere else if there's more pork available?
Well, will there be more pork available?
I mean,
like there'll be less pork available.
Same number of pigs are being raised because they haven't retooled the farms.
Oh, but they'll be able to sell it elsewhere.
In theory, you would think if you lower the price on your pork, you could sell. You would think it would be pressured down outside of California and up inside California.
Yeah, and if all of the California has a huge
kind of like the opposite of the cannabis industry. As soon as it became legal in California, the price went down everywhere else, but then they started exporting it to other states, right?
Cannabis and bacon. Now we're talking.
Something like that. So,
it's bacon.
It may make bacon scarce in California. To Neethy's point, it may bring about lower access to animal products on the consumer market. That all can be the result of this. What it so far has not had the result of was the intended result of giving pigs more space.
They don't really care about the pigs or the people. So let's just make that really clear. Because if they did, then they wouldn't come up with these convoluted things that nobody can make any sense of.
Yeah.
Isn't centralized, all the centralized data and everything across the board is convoluted in an effort to confuse the general public so that the consumers remain confused and remain feeling like they need to be saved, or they need a savior, or they need somebody else to take care of them or tell them what to do. Because isn't that how they like it? They like it when everyone just does what they say. They want everyone to do what they say and not think, not operate with logic or reason or any of those things, right?
Kind of like a biomedical police state.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want you to walk in your full power. They want you to be this, operate in your slave self, which we are working to shed the slave self. Is that true?
Okay, Neethi, something has happened to your mic all of a sudden, and it's almost like fabric is over it. Is there anything covering your mic?
It's a conspiracy.
Talk.
I mean, I'm being shadow mic.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. It's like all of a sudden you're talking through a tube. So, beg your kids for help on that one.
This reminds me of like Around the Horn or PTI, old ESPN show where there's like people in the quadrant. They get points if the host likes what they say. They go ding, 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 ding. they lose points if they don't like them.
Well, we could gamify it. Okay, so that's the coming bacon apocalypse. I have seen people reacting to this by buying bacon here in Tennessee, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
Really?
Pork may go up in price.
The same thing's happening with jet fuel, right? The prices of the airline tickets is going up, and everybody's like, why would it be going up? Well, you have less flights, have less people working at this point, but also the fuel, and I've had word from people who actually run fuel yards for airlines. It's like they actually have the fuel, but they're not deploying it. And so they're saying, even flights are having to get diverted that are coming to the States, going to Canada for some reason, and it's because they don't have enough fuel, ostensibly. But the fact is that there is enough fuel. It's kind of like the same thing with lumber and a lot of the other industries right now, is that there is enough. it's just not being distributed properly. And in some cases, they're paying. I saw a video with the guy who runs an oil company. I don't know what state it's in, but he's being paid to unload all of his oil just on the ground, like literally to get rid of it. And they're getting, just like farmers are getting, I saw videos, farmers are getting paid to get rid of their crops. And they're getting paid 1.5 times more what they would for the crop to actually get rid of it. So is this like an engineered shortage? Is this engineered hard times, for the next variant to come out and for them to come with more draconian measures? Is this part of that, the bacon apocalypse?
Bacon apocalypse. I think bacon apocalypse is just a misguided attempt to fix something in a way that doesn't actually fix something, which is typical of legislation. That's why we don't use the government to fix problems, right? Because they don't. They just make more problems. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think for people that are genuinely concerned about the well-being of pigs and factory farms, as they should be, as we all should be, the best solution is to vote with your dollars and to make choices. So if it's your values, one of your values is healthy animals that aren't neglected or factory farmed, then the best thing that people can do is to go give their business to factory farms or learn how to raise pigs on their own. And I think we can see a lot more difference being made through markets. But the people that really care, rather than just giving platitudes online or calling their representatives, really need to be the ones to drive the change. And that happened with organic food, non-GMO food, gluten-free. We see that everywhere now. It's not just some weird thing for granola hippies. It's becoming a fad and a trend because people are shifting markets. So rather than relying on government to solve things, which ends up just distorting things and having all sorts of unintended consequences. Sometimes they're intended in the case of social engineering and such. The best thing that we can all do in order to make a difference is to get involved ourselves and to vote with our dollars and vote with our feet. Get the hell out of California if you care about freedom at all. I hope you would have already left.
I know somebody who's moving from California in about a week to Tennessee. So
all right. That's a big step up.
So the other article, because I found too, the thing about this whole Newsbuster thing is I start looking at the news every day, which I don't usually do, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. So it's a little too easy to find things for us to talk about. I found an article, fully vaccinated people made, what was it? It was so it was about an outbreak in Massachusetts, where there were 469 outbreaks, of which 346 of them were vaccinated people. And they go on to talk about how many ended up in the hospital, which, of course, was a fairly low number. It was about 1% ended up in the hospital. And the conclusion of the article was, wait for it, that's why we need to push for more vaccinations. But then when I ran the actual numbers, here's how it broke down. 469 total cases. 346 of those were vaccinated people. So those were breakthrough cases. 4 of those people ended up in the hospital. That's 1.15%. There were 123 unvaccinated people infected. 1 person ended up in the hospital. That's 0.8%. But the conclusion is we need to get vaccinated, and they never really explained the numbers or drilled down on why 75% or 70% were breakthrough cases, which isn't even quote unquote supposed to happen. So that's the backdrop for the article. Let's have some Goose feedback on that one.
It's a fraud.
People who I know in the medical industry are saying that when they're reporting these numbers, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you sound way better. You're back.
Okay. I know. I just had a whole team of people here who were hooking me up. So
yeah.
Thank you, children. The baby's got it. Anyway, sorry. The medical professionals that I'm talking to have said that when people are coming in, they're not allowed to gather any numbers from anybody who comes in with COVID who was vaccinated. They're not allowed to count those.
Yeah.
And they only can count the ones that come in if they're unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just like lies on lies on lies. Why doesn't, I mean, and when all the medical professionals who are trying to report any of these things or talk about any of this stuff, I mean, everybody's being censored to death, as we well know. If you, I don't know. I think that they're so desperate. You know, that's how I feel about it, is that when you have people who are trying to coerce and trying to pressure and trying to bribe and trying to, I mean, like, you know, why do they need to be bribing people to do this if there's an emergency? Because there's no emergency. If there was an emergency, if somebody was witnessing some people like just dropping dead everywhere or whatever, then, but nature is just being framed like it always is. I mean, they're framed nature constantly.
So
Sorry.
my question is, from the counterpoint perspective, is like, how could this be a conspiracy? There are so many people that have gotten the vaccine, that are pushing the vaccine, that are part of the agenda to get the vaccine rolled out. So I would ask you guys that. What do you think about that? Is it a legit concern to the point where people need to be taking part in some kind of bio state and experimenting on themselves with some kind of unknown variable that they don't necessarily need if they have antibodies? Or is it just, you know, is this something legitimate?
It's not legitimate, but it is, you know, Xavier, I think that we created these institutions to serve us. And it is a quantum leap for people to believe that the institutions that have served us have become so corrupt that they have now become our masters. And so, you know, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the institutions that we created wouldn't so blatantly and so boldly do this. And people have asked me a lot of times, you know, what is the motivation? I'll tell you what I think, and then I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. What do you guys think about this? I think the reason is because the United States Constitution is a compact, and the United States Constitution protects a lot of other governments and upholds a lot of other governments. And if there needs to be a one world government, then they have to get rid of our Constitution. And in an effort to do that, they will coerce and do all of these 100 other things in every effort to to pillage our village. They're pillaging our village.
How do you get people at every level of the medical field, for instance, to go along with it? Are they being offered seats?
They're threatening all of them. I mean, I don't know where you're at. Are they not threatening all your people? Because they're threatening all of ours, that if they don't do this, they can't have a job. And then the rest of them are bought, you know. I mean, I know our governor was bought last year, 2019 was bought, you know.
I think, though, that a lot of medical professionals believe that it's the best move to take the shot. That's like, I've talked to, not everyone I talk to, but a good number of them actually believe it. People I know well, because based on the data that they have looked at, they think you are less likely to go to the hospital if you get the vaccine. And that's why they recommend it. These are the same people who have been urging me to get a flu shot for the last decade, right? Who are like, you are completely crazy for never getting a flu shot. And then I see them get the flu shot and get the flu.
Get it even worse. I think.
Right. And so I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, but if I hadn't gotten the shot, blah, blah, blah.
It would have been worse.
Okay, that's fine. But I think it's that they've bought into that narrative. Well, how out of touch with reality is anybody who reads an article like this? And the conclusion is that's why more people need to be vaccinated when there's so many breakthrough cases and the percentage of hospitalization in that specific example is higher. They've updated the article, by the way, since I sent it to you. Like, I just looked at it, and now it's 900 total cases, and it proves that the vaccine's working because the hospitalization rate is so low.
Same with Public Health Scotland. They found that 85% of the deaths were from people who have been vaccinated. 85%.
It doesn't work.
They're not reporting the 400,000 murders.
On something Neeti said earlier, I personally don't believe that the institutions that we have in the United States were set up to serve us And we didn't set them up. I wasn't around to set them up, but I think ever since the get-go, it's been about control. All governments have been about one group of people wanting to assert authority over other groups of people. And then the challenge with democracy and a Republican form of government, which we don't have, nor did we ever have, even in the early days, is that it gives the appearance as though there's this benefit for the people, or that the purpose is to protect life, liberty, and property, when in reality, it's never been about that. It's always been about control, taxation, servitude. And so I just wanted to be really clear on that, because there's a lot of like mythology and a lot of reverence for the early American founding, right? And although relative to alternatives like the divine right of kings, it's preferable, but there's that expression, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. So I think the entire time, even, the CDC, the FDA, all of these regulatory agencies, it's not that they've lost their way, it's that they never had their way. Yeah, it's all just right. It's all just protectionism. But regarding the vaccine and stuff, I think that there's this like Edward L. Bernays, who's the father of modern propaganda, and he's a nephew of Sigmund Freud, big manipulator for public relations and social engineering. He said, in order to control populations, you don't have to reach every single one of the individuals. You only have to reach the authorities within a given group, right? Or a given industry. So all they got to do to convince all of these doctors, who in turn convince all of the patients and the people who see the doctors' authorities, is convince those folks in the medical schools, right? And then Neathy's well aware of the Flexner report. You brought it up before, and how it was the Rockefellers that manipulated the authority and shifted away from Eastern medicine towards this allopathic medicine. So a lot of people, unlike us, they just want to go along to get along. And they don't really stand a whole lot to gain to shake things up. They just want to have a cushy life and earn some money and have fun with their kids. They don't want to change the world. They're not that ambitious. And then that social pressure is just so damn strong right now with all this COVID stuff. It's absolutely nuts.
John, I 1,000,000% agree with you. And I want to make clear to everybody out there that I do know that we didn't form any of this stuff for us. And in fact, all these government pieces were formed as also a side effect of the Flexner report. All the centralized systems happened simultaneously at that same time, with the medical centralized system, the education, the food and drug. I mean, everything was established post 1910 simultaneously on purpose with this in mind. And absolutely everything that John just said, I 1,000,000% agree with it. But I was just trying to I'm just saying that a lot of people they have this cognitive dissonance because they think that we created the systems to serve us. That's what they think. I mean, just saying what they think. And so I 1,000,000%, whatever John just said, I believe that 1,000,000%. And on top of that, at the end of what John just said, the reason a lot of people are struggling with that and they're wanting to go along to get along in some cases is not just because they're not trying to change the world like we are, but also because their family members are caught in this, because it's the first time that there is so much division between parents and children and brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's bad.
Okay.
It's really
nasty.
bad.
Yeah,
so this is the perfect segue into the,
and they're like following the narrative. They're following the narrative and totally like they look down on anybody who hasn't. And the cognitive dissonance there is so scary to me, because it seems like there are a lot more people who are well established in this and that actually buy the narrative, are not thinking critically, are not getting real information from. I mean, ever since Obama's era, he made it legal to actually have propaganda and lies on news media. Before that, they didn't allow that. Now it's like legal, right? It's not right, but it's legal. So the narrative that's out there totally doesn't match with reality, and a lot of people are buying the narrative that doesn't match with reality and looking at the people who are matching with reality and saying there's something wrong with them. And it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Well, that's, you know what though? I think of it this way. I give some grace on that. As much as it frustrates me beyond all manner of frustration. I also think like I've bought into this live off the land lifestyle and growing my own food. And if I found out through empirical research that the nutritional value of my food is lower than CAFO meat, I have at this point so bought into the concept, I would have a hard time shifting to that. Now, I'm also fairly confident that's not going to happen. And I think it's important that we need to question. We need to question our assumptions too, right? Like that's why I follow the COVID thing. And I can say, I can't tell you for 100% certain I would never get the vaccination at this point because I don't feel like I have any valid information about it. I have theories on one side and I have a narrative on the other side and no information. And 5 years from now, maybe there would be information. I don't know. I just know that I don't have access to enough information to make that decision. So the decision is no.
The conversation's been totally manipulated. And a lot of the people that are taking the vaccine aren't even doing so with informed consent because the opposing viewpoint has been censored. And I just want to, give everyone some hope because it may seem as though the whole world has lost their mind and they're just buying this narrative hook, line, and sinker. But I believe that there are far more people out there that see through the lies than the establishment would have us believe, right? Now, mind you, a lot of people have lost their ability to influence populations. Even old freaking Donald Trump got censored from all the big social media platforms. And then there's a lot of people. So there's a lot of people that think like us that are loud and proud, right? And then there's a lot of people that think like us, but they feel a little bit uncertain and afraid to go out and be vocal. Like I remember through the COVID stuff, I was banging on stuff and I would have my high school friends private message me like, hey, I really resonate with what you're saying, but they're not going to like go comment on my thing and say, give them hell, John, I'm with you, or share some of the news articles, right? So just remember, I think there's more of us out there than people really know. I think that the tide is starting to turn. Just like the numbers, they say like 60% of the US or something is completely vaccinated. With all of the fear that everyone went through last year and still in all of that propaganda and all of the incentives and the free donuts and the free $100 bills, this, that, and the other, that's a pretty low percentage, all things considered. In some ways we're winning.
$100 bill is not going to give you my long-term health. Sorry, it's worth more than that.
$100. Yeah, and I don't think it's 60%. I think it's more like 30%.
You think it's less?
I think it's a lot less than that.
Or they wouldn't be freaking out so much.
I heard that in the military. Yeah, in the military, it was 30% that have agreed to do it. So they're actually they have to come in with these more draconian measures because they're not meeting their number quota for the apocalypse.
Yeah. That's
by the way, we're totally going to get another YouTube strike on this one, probably. Okay,
we got a YouTube strike?
Oh, we had one a while ago. Last time we talked about the vaccination, the video was pulled down before it was even the next morning.
Oh, and we tried to call it something else, huh? But then Jack was flipping up. And
we got totally. But, this is streaming on the Goose channel, so we can totally blow up, and that's fine. And you guys can find us on Odyssey if our YouTube channel gets taken down. And we are streaming to Odyssey, but the title is confusing because it says UTG test because I didn't know I need to change that. That's my bad. So I'll change it next time. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. And that is this victim mindset, because I think the way that this whole, we have an echo somewhere. Who is it? Who is it?
It's not
is
me.
It you,
I got the bud.
Yeah, okay. Mute
might be me. Is it me?
Yeah, just mute when you're not talking. So we have this whole brilliant thing set up where I have to wear a mask to protect you. Therefore, you can get mad at me for not having the mask. I have to have a vaccine to protect you. Therefore, you can get mad at me for not getting the vaccine. That's the way this whole thing has been framed. And it kind of reminds me of when people from the city move to the country. And the first thing I hear is, there is a dog running around the neighborhood. Who do I call to come get this dog? So, who's ringing?
Uh-oh. this is the government. You guys need to shut
Okay, my apologies. It's done. Yeah.
The savior was ringing. So, I asked for some input on this. Like, what should somebody do if there's a stray dog running around the neighborhood or the neighbor's dog keeps getting on their property? Should they call a guy to come pick up the dog? What would you do?
Oh, you go talk to your neighbor.
Talk to each other.
Yeah.
Sorry, John.
Everyone's like, talk to the neighbor. Yeah,
Talk to
the neighbor.
Don't be a dork.
Ask them, so when I moved here, I had chickens and my neighbor's dog would come down and eat my chickens.
Mm.
And I went down and I was like, hey, your dog ate my chickens. And he said, thanks for not shooting my dog.
Aww.
And I said, you're welcome. And then he installed an electric fence. It failed. His dog came down and ate my chickens. I went down and said, your dog got out and ate my chickens. He paid for my chickens. And then he installed a better electric fence. And guess what? No dog eating my chickens.
Nice. Yeah. I used to live out, my kids were born on this 2.5 acre homestead, and it was in this area. I like these kind of areas in town here in Texas where there's a lot of folks that just want to be left alone. And there's a lot of Mexicanos. And so there's chickens all over. And so there was this house across the street, and they were actually pretty neglectful of their dog. It would just be there chained up. And we thought it was pretty sad. So we went over there to talk to him. This is when I didn't speak very good Spanish, but we talked to him over and over and over, and they never did anything. And so we finally went over and we're like, hey, we would like to take your dog and find it a better home. And they reluctant. I don't even think they were reluctant. They were probably like, thanks, get it off of our hands. But we went and we rehomed the dog, but we didn't call animal control. We didn't call the police. We went over there and had a conversation. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, they are like in their little bubble, and there's just so much insecurity in the world, in part because public schools are just so hellish and people are so mean to each other. But people just never develop the confidence to go talk to people that they don't know. People struggle to even talk to their family, maybe even more so than talking to people they don't know. So I've just encouraged folks to strike up a conversation. You may find that there's more common ground, and whenever your solutions oriented and you're not trying to attack someone or get someone in trouble, you're just trying to figure out how we can solve this problem together. The results are actually pretty good usually.
Yeah. And if you come over there mad and yell at them, they're less likely to work with you. That's the other thing. I can understand being really upset when the dog's on your property pooping or tearing up your garden or chasing your cats or your kids or your chickens. But you need to put it's interpersonal skills 101 that we seem to have lost, because on social media, it's okay to just call people a poopy head, and they won't hit you back. So people start just really getting vicious. When you go up in person, they can hit you back. And if somebody comes at me telling me what a bad person I am out of the chute and I don't even know what's going on, what's my first reaction? It's fuck you. It doesn't even matter if you're right. It's fuck you. It'll take me 2 days to think it through and come back and be like, okay, now I'm ready to talk, right? You got to put some of that stuff on hold. And I think a lot of people forget that, sometimes it's better to start with sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. Next scenario. What do you do? It's the same scenario, only it's kids. Neighbors not taking care of their kids. You see them outside. They're cold. They're unwashed. They look hungry. What do you do?
Offer to help.
How do you do that, John?
A lot of time, sometimes people are just straight up neglectful. This is one of the biggest challenges too. And it's like in a free society without child protective services, which in most instances is over the top and gets involved for silly reasons. But at the end of the day, it's not so easy that we just have like an instant solution. It's that we need to act as good stewards and good people in the moment and help other people, and obviously not involve the authorities unless it's a worst case scenario. But more important than that, we need to start thinking in terms of future generations and how can we create the cultural shifts in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, such that we rebuild the way things used to be. We do it in a new way, right? But it's a throwback. Like Social Security, for example, when parents and grandparents grow old, the state stepped in and inserted itself in the arrangement that used to be the parents take care of the kids, and then the grandparents take care of their grandchildren, and then the children of the grandparents take care of their parents when they get old. We've lost our way. So there's a lot of families that are in broken homes where there's abuse, and then that trickles down and it recreates the cycle. And then we have this single family home situation where everyone's just totally isolated. So I think more so than like, what do we do in the given moment, which is a challenge. I think you shouldn't call the authorities unless it's extreme, because we don't have institutions in place to deal with that outside of the authorities sometimes if there's extreme abuse and neglect. But we really need to just start shifting the way things that we do. And so like we can start by taking good care of our own kids, being there for our friends and family and associates when we know they're struggling or going through a poverty streak. And when it comes to like the Social Security example, we can start by taking care of our parents when they start to get old, so we can set the example for our children and for future generations.
Xavier, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, in a situation like that, I would likely start giving the kids goods and services. You know, I would give them clothes if they needed it. I would feed them if I saw that they were hungry. I wouldn't involve myself with their family per se, because of the general feeling that I would have would be that those parents would then be unreasonable individuals themselves if they're not able to maintain their own field of health and wellness and the economy of the feelings and emotions of their family. Then they're probably not sufficiently equipped to deal with other human beings, right? Socially or neighborly. And so I try to keep distance, but with the hopes that, you know, with kindness and with education, like talking to the kids and just getting to know them. And we all think in stories, whether we realize it or not. The humans are, the way we continue civilization is through story. And then we put ourselves and frame our lives in story. And so when you think about a child and then they're having a hard time at home, it's hellacious or whatever, but then they meet somebody who is nearby and helps them, like they take a place in their story, in their world of story, of their ideas and stuff. And so they'll be more inclined to listen to that person, you know, if they're shown kindness and whatever. And it might open their whole world. Like they might find themselves as a seed in a very unpleasant soil. But then as they branch out, you know, they'll find more and more appropriate soil that hopefully they'd be able to, you know, find a new way, show them a way, demonstrate it, be that in their lives. I'm definitely not about involving the state in the dog thing or the people thing. You know, how can we be better stewards of our, like John said, of our own families and then of our neighbors, because they're our community.
Nisi, you wanted to talk and I cut you off.
No, that was what I was saying, that when I was growing up and we had folks in the neighborhood who you knew that they were struggling, whether it was because the parents were not capable or maybe they were capable, but they were having a hard time, you could know. So you wouldn't really want to necessarily go have a talk with them and you don't want to humiliate them or anything. But like Xavier was saying, like we would have just taken them in. My mother would have invited, you know, she would have said, why don't you go invite so-and-so, the other kids, over for dinner tonight? I think they would enjoy coming over. Or my mom actually would go out of her way and say, you know, why don't we invite them over? Like, go see if, you know, so-and-so down the street wants to come and have some lunch with us or have some dinner with us. Or anytime that we were able to include those children, I know that she did. And when they would come over, then I thought that it was really cool that my mom would say, hey, look, I've got these shorts or these jeans or these t-shirts. Do you like them? Would you like to have them? This is just something extra that I have. And allow the child to just have some of those things, you know, or maybe like Xavier's saying, like, you know, mentor them and, you know, just include them in whatever it is that we're doing. I think that's a really nice, gentle way, because I'm sure that those parents knew that their kids were eating with us or were coming home with some new clothes or something, and that child would just be like, hey, they have this extra shirt and said, do you want it? And I like it. Isn't this great? And so that, you know, it wasn't necessarily humiliating them. I think that, you know, we always are talking about all these different counter economic and like new ways of practicing, you know, or sharing currency, like we're talking about bartering and all these other things. Well, I think the new currency is going to be caring. I think as the new earth is coming in, and this old earth is coming out, I think that we're going to, we will see that then one of the new currencies is going to be caring.
That's a good point.
Did you say Karen?
No, we're talking about Karens, but caring is what
I know.
she said. I would only add that when it's a situation that goes above and beyond neglect, and it's abuse, and it's violence against the child, that is a problem that's very hard to know if and when you should get involved, right? Because you have two options there right now in our society. One, you physically intervene. What happens if you physically intervene? Right now, you actually can be charged with assault for physically intervening, right? If you call the authorities, then you are exposing that child to possibly worse abuse through the system, because the systems we have in place we don't do that well. Sometimes we do that well, sometimes we don't. And so I find, like, when I take that thought experiment to the extreme, I have to be asking myself, am I willing to adopt this child myself? If I am, it's time to get involved.
I would just offer a safe space, Nicole. I've been in that situation before, and you don't want to. I personally didn't want to call the authorities in that specific situation because of what we know about the way that those authorities work. And so just offering that child a safe space was really powerful, because that child knew they could come over. They didn't have to explain anything. They didn't have to do anything. They also knew I wasn't going to try to go call their parents or anything. Mm-hmm. They just had a place to be.
Okay, next one. And Xavier is going first on this one because he's only with us for 3 more minutes. So everybody let Xavier talk.
I got to bounce. Sorry.
Yeah, next Karenism. Facebook asks you to report anybody who is displaying extremist behaviors or exposing you to extremist ideas. What do you do?
Holy shit. I left Facebook and I was like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. We are in like some dystopian fucking Nazi regime at this point. And so I left, and then a friend of mine said, a very well-known crypto guy, he was like, you can't let them push you out. Like, you shouldn't leave out of your own accord. If they're going to make you leave, you should leave. If they're going to make you leave, make them make you leave, And I was like, ooh, that's a good point. So I don't really know how I feel about whether I'm leaving or not, other than it's fucked up. And if I went to a friend's house, right, or a business, and people there would rat on me and I would get in somehow like real legit trouble, like I just wouldn't go to that business anymore. I don't care who I see there. Frankly, most of the time I don't really want to see anybody there anyway. Like, I go to Facebook for really 2 people just to see how they're doing, because they're still posting there, and that's it. So I will never report anybody, especially in this environment and what's going on now. But yeah, I don't even know that I want to be there any longer.
Yep, that's a good point. Anybody else have comments on that one? By the way, Facebook has never asked me if anybody's exposing me to extremist opinion.
Extremist.
Yeah.
I think I first want to say thank you, Nicole, and great job for being all prepared now with this. Now I can't see you. I want to see you smile. Hopefully you're smiling. I appreciate how you got this all organized and stuff with little segments and stuff, and the segments have names. I think that's really cool and valuable, and I'm sure the listeners really appreciate it. I have the same thought that Xavier's friend had. Like old Derek Bros, he like always had this internal struggle with staying on Facebook, and I always encouraged him to stay on it because he would reach a lot of people, and it's like using the enemy's tool against them, right? And that's what I guess that's Spirko's approach, except he's just kind of just being a total ass about it with all the Zuckercock stuff. But it's a place where people congregate, and if we're not the types that covet our Facebook account so much that we won't speak truth to power, then we should go out there and muck up their system. But ultimately, the thing to do is to encourage the use and growth of alternative platforms like float.app. That's one ran by voluntarists and crypto people, float.app. MeWe's pretty cool as well. There's a lot of cool people on there. I know Jack's really pushing that one pretty hard. So I would encourage people to use the alternatives. And there's like a double approach for activists. So like when it comes to the alternatives like Float and MeWe, that's a place where we should go to organize and be like, hey guys, let's do a meat share, or hey, let's do some cool cryptocurrency projects, or hey, join the Freedom Cell network, right? Because that's the cadre already. That's the remnant. And we want to get the remnant organized and get the remnant working together to build new systems. And then when it comes to Facebook, we should try to pick off people that are on the fringes. You know, if you spend time debating, sometimes there's value in that because there's people that are watching and they may see this like Socratic dialogue taking place, although it's hardly ever intellectual or healthy conversation. But when it comes to Facebook, it's like, let's go out there to try to pick off some low-hanging fruit, some people that are a little more mainstream, although they've been questioning things for a while, and maybe we say something or drop something on them that pushes them over the edge, and all of a sudden they're red-pilled. So that's my thoughts on Facebook. Face crack.
Face tattle. It's face tattle.
So
do you have anything to add?
I just hate narcs.
Snitches.
Yeah, you know, I'm like, just mind your business. Like, what is going on? I mean, I'm having a conversation in my world on there. You have your conversation in your world. And why don't you just stay out of my conversation? If you don't like me, just don't look at what I'm saying, because I don't have time for this. Like, you know.
Ain't nobody got time for that shit.
She's got her angel wings behind her. She has no time.
And the bacon and the Agris flag. Dang, we converted her quick, didn't we? We got her.
This is Mina. Mm-hmm. That's representative because she's with me all the time. Meat. If you don't have any real meat, I'm sorry. Like, that is where all the power is at. Meat. And I'm so happy to be part of the Agris thing now. So now that I know what it is. I was just doing it anyway.
I think the best thing about the agorist movement is all the agorists who don't know they're agorists.
Yeah.
And then they learn about it and they're like, I found my people.
I found a flag. I found a flag to hang. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Good flag.
Yeah.
Every time I listen to you, John, by the way, I'm like, I just love John.
Aww.
And I'm like, you know, I'm like, these are my people.
Yeah.
Well,
you're sweet.
So let's go back to Facebook. I did a little thought experiment or a little data experiment. And first of all, if I'm asked to report extremists, you can just screw off because I don't even know what that means. An opinion is an opinion. You can have your opinion. I don't care. And if you want to talk about it on Facebook, that's fine. I get frustrated because I have 6 pasture-raised chickens that were fed non-GMO organic feed and grass that I cannot sell on Facebook, which has a pretty good marketplace reach, because you're not allowed to sell livestock or dead livestock on Facebook unless you are. I read the terms, and I can't be, as an individual homesteader who raised her own livestock, I'm not supposed to be able to post it. But if I'm like a commercial farm, I can.
Huh. Those are the state laws. Those are those state laws, Nicole. Like, yeah, it goes into that over-regulation. You know.
So now on Marketplace, what happens? You post it for sale. They take them all down everywhere because they don't want to mess with it, right? And then because PETA is also pressuring Facebook, you can't even sell eggs anymore. You write about eggs, and your Marketplace thing is down. So I have actually sold 4 chickens on Facebook recently, but I've got these 6 chickens left. And so I thought, well, I'll put it on the alternative networks and see what happens. Nothing. I did the same experiment with my podcast, though. Like, what happens if for a whole month I never even post on Facebook that the new podcast is out? What happens? Do you know what happened to my download data?
It went up?
It went up.
Wow.
It didn't affect it at all. I mean, I don't know if I had also posted it on. So my podcast comes out and I post it. I used to post it on Facebook, Twitter, MeWe, Float, and Odyssey. Right. So I just go through the whole thing and I put it on Telegram because we have a Telegram channel. And I just decided, because I've invested years into developing our MeWe community on MeWe and not Facebook, because a couple of years ago I realized if I depend on the traditional new media, old media at this point for my livelihood, I'm going to be screwed when they cut me off, and eventually they'll cut me off. Right. So then I pushed everybody to my website. I got off. I mean, I'm on Patreon. I have like 2 patrons left. I gave everybody on Patreon a coupon code to my website so they could just get on there. And I invested my time in MeWe. And so this year I spent a whole month not posting anything on Facebook, and it had 0 impact on my stats.
Cool. Well, that's good to know.
So I think the truth is you can make your transition, but then I started thinking about, should I let them chase me off there? No. Just
blast it.
So I just say what I want on Facebook, and eventually I'll be gone.
Then you get blocked for 3 days, and you say what you want, then they block you for 3 days, and you say what you want.
Then they block you for 30 days.
They did manage to censor me when it comes to sharing my website, mybravebotanicals.com. I lost access to my advertising account, and I got the most bans, not for saying the vaccine should be questioned or 9/11 was an inside job or whatever, but for freaking trying to offer kratom to people. The website must have got blacklisted or something. So now I say,
you are so powerful. That's how powerful you are, John.
Yeah, it's
herbal remedies are not supported on Facebook. That goes against their terms.
No,
I think you might be you sound like you're as badass as the health ranger, because if you post anything that he says and you put it on Facebook, you're immediately like, my phone starts glitching, like everything's like breaking apart.
He's in Bastrop, I think, that guy.
Yeah.
The health ranger, I think he lives here in Bastrop County. That's where I'm at. The freedom mecca of the world. It's not really, but I'm going to turn it into one. I'm not a fond of naturalnews.com because I think that some of the articles are sensationalized, right? And like, I've been a conspiracy researcher for like 20 years, right? So a lot of it's legit, a lot of stuff that's out there, but there's this tendency for it to go a little bit over the top. And then I did a consultation with the family, and one of the spouses was like freaked out about stuff because they were watching natural news. And there's this tendency for people to internalize stuff, certain types of media, which is why I like this podcast. I like our content. Like the Greater Reset, right? It's all about empowerment. We're still sharing the truth, and we're not cowering from it or sugarcoating it in any way. But the context that it comes in, this goes to the whole victim thing. I don't know if we're going to get to the victim stuff.
No, it's actually
let's talk about the victim thing now.
Because we're all for love, and we're all for pouring power over people. I agree with you 100%. I mean, he's right about a lot of things, but there is a lot of victimhood on that side of it as well. I mean, I think a lot of that came from his life being threatened so many times, and
he's got a big reach.
Well, on the topic of victimhood, the reason I was thinking about it is I'm watching our followers chat on our social networks, MeWe, Telegram, and they're talking about how they're coming for your guns, and they're coming for your meat, and they're coming for you, and they're going to go door to door off the plot. And I'm thinking, I understand feeling fear about that because that's what's being reported in the news. But there's a pretty simple solution to that. Right?
Right.
What? Squat up?
Just don't
participate.
Don't participate. It's possible it's possible that the government would come in at gunpoint and force everybody to comply, but it's highly unlikely. That doesn't work in their favor.
Or Tennessee.
But if you're not,
I don't think they're that vested.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's just
I think that they're going to try to cut you off financially or do something else. They're going to try to make it harder for you in some other way. They're not going to actually like show up. I mean, I know that it feels like it looks like they're going to come to your house or something. But actually what they'll probably do is just push a button from wherever they're at and like make it difficult for you to have like get credit or something else.
Yeah.
So John Bush,
finance now.
John Bush has a solution for this, I think. John Bush.
Well, I mean, if you learn about alternative forms of money, like, I don't know, cryptocurrency.
John, what you got for us?
What do you got? What do you got for us on cryptocurrency? You got a class coming up, right? Tell us about this class.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd love to. Okay, so people can go to buildwealthoptout.com. That's buildwealthoptout.com. And I'm going to be doing a webinar next Wednesday, this Wednesday coming up, a week from today at 11 a.m. And it's all about how cryptocurrency can help you to build wealth and help you to opt out of the technocracy. So we're going to spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about cryptocurrency, what its benefits are, how people can build wealth through cryptocurrency, how people can protect existing wealth, how people can ensure they have privacy in their financial life, how people can ensure that they're still going to be able to do business with undesirable individuals and institutions, even if the government tries to shut them down, how you can still do business with Brave Botanicals Kratom, for example, even though I can't accept credit cards or debit cards. We're also going to talk about how, if you haven't gotten involved with cryptocurrency, if you listen to this podcast and you're still not involved with cryptocurrency, then I don't know, maybe we're not doing our jobs. I'll take responsibility for that. But I invite you to this webinar. It's free. And we're going to talk about some of the things you can do to make sure when you do get involved in cryptocurrency, you don't get hacked, or what's more than likely to happen is people do user error and screw things up. They don't write down their seed phrase. They misplace their password. They send Ethereum to the wrong address and it ends up in the ether, like I did way back in the day during the Ethereum crowd sale. I'm going to teach you some of the basics on how to avoid doing that. And then finally, I hope to empower people and leave them feeling with a new sense of inspiration and motivation, understanding how impactful and the true magnitude of what we're dealing with when it comes to cryptocurrency, whether it's decentralized finance, completely uprooting the legacy financial institutions, replacing the banks eventually, or whether it's decentralized autonomous organizations, creating all new forms of social organization and governance and decision making and the allocation of jointly owned funds. There's so much big stuff on the horizon. So we're going to talk about a lot of that cool stuff. The website again is buildwealthoptout.com. Buildwealthoptout.com. I'd love to share with you guys how I did decentralized finance to pay for my house to get painted. If anybody wants to hear about that. So
I would love for you to share it too.
Yeah, tell us a story. It's story time.
I would love for you to share. Also, I think that John Bush, your courses, for anybody who's out there, I think, thank you for offering me a gift of your class, because I wouldn't have known how you teach or your style or whatever. But for all the parents out there that are homeschooling or unschooling like I do, I think that what John Bush has put out there should be a requirement for all of your high school aged children. They should be required to take his courses. They're very reasonably priced, equivalent to a lot of the unschool or homeschool or outschooled class or courses. And I don't know if you're promoting it that way, John. I'm just kind of, as a mother, saying, like, I expect my children to take your course if they want to graduate from my homeschool or unschool or whatever you want to say. So I think it's beautifully done, and thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're being so sweet to me today. Wow.
Well, I mean,
because you've been gone for so long. We missed you.
Oh.
I know, but also, I mean, it's really true. I don't get anything out of this. For anybody who's out there, I don't know, maybe John's going to hook me up with something else. I don't really know. But
I need to get you an affiliate link so you can get something.
I'm just kidding. But I am I'm happy to pay for any of the courses, because I really believe they're that valuable. I would definitely want my kids to know it and understand it and take it seriously. And anybody who's out there who's homeschooling and unschooling, seriously, I think that our children need to be educated on these things. None of this education is in any school program. If your kids are in public school, they should take his program, because if they're not taking his classes, they're going to be lost. They're not being taught any of this anywhere.
Yeah, it's the future.
So,
or they're the kind of kid that's making their own cryptocurrency at home.
Yeah.
There's always that kid, but that's rare.
They might be inclined to do that too. That's pretty cool. I mean,
Like
whatever
the ones
it is
who make up languages, you're like, wow, that was really cool. You made up a language.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, but I truly believe in it. As you know, I just want to thank you for putting it together, man. It's like amazing.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Yeah, the last one I did was like over 17 hours worth of content. I am doing another full-on workshop. So this webinar thing, it's free. Anyone can attend. I strongly encourage folks to do. But the following weekend, the 14th and 15th, I'm doing another cryptocurrency workshop. This one will be extremely geared towards beginners. And you just opened my eyes to another market that I hadn't really promoted to, which would be kids. And so this it's for beginners. The website's cryptobeginnersworkshop.com, cryptobeginnersworkshop.com. And it's going to be really, really basic. So the other one was 17 hours. And I thought I was like over delivering and everyone would just love it. But there were some people that were like, whoa, dude, that was a little overwhelming. So I'm doing another one. And this one's going to be super streamlined, super simple. And part of the marketing is that even, an 8 or 9-year-old would be able to understand it just the same as an older generation person that struggles with smartphones or doesn't know copy and paste. They'll be able to understand it as well. That's August 14th and 15th. But
awesome.
Recently, so my girlfriend and I just closed on a 10-acre homestead here in Bastrop County about 2 months ago. Super exciting. And we wouldn't have been able to do it if we were in a victim mindset or scarcity, or we were like, oh my God, the country's economy is failing, blah, blah, blah. We were like, no, we're going to lean into any opportunity we have. I actually made more money in 2020 than I ever had before. When everyone was like locking down, I was like, I'm going to go sell hand sanitizer to gas stations and sell masks to gas stations. Then I realized the masks were kind of BS. So I kind of pulled back from that. But I had a couple good months selling masks to people imported from China. But either way, so we got this house and we've been planning to paint the house because it looked a little bit tacky. It's a really nice house, but the painting wasn't too hot. It was just weird off-color bricks. And my girlfriend's family is coming over for her birthday in October. So she accelerated our painting timeline because she wants the house to be all snazzy and stuff, which is cool. But I was like, okay, well, I had just bought $5,000 worth of Ethereum, right? And now she's like, well, we got to pay for this paint job, right? And we split home improvements like that. So I was like, man, then it costs $7,000. And I was like, all right, I don't want to pull $3,500 out of my capital. I like to keep my money invested in my businesses. I don't even do stuff for myself. All my extra money goes to buy stuff like this. I don't buy fancy things for myself. But I was like, well, I just bought $5,000 and I need to pony up $3,500. So maybe I could try out this decentralized finance thing, right? So I used an application called Compound. It's a DeFi app that runs on the Ethereum blockchain. I took my $5,000 worth of Ethereum, which I bought at around $1,930. I took that $5,000 and I supplied it as collateral for a DeFi loan. So I'm not doing business with a bank. I'm not doing business with a centralized cryptocurrency company like BlockFi or Celsius, which also allows you to put cryptocurrency as collateral and get a loan. I'm doing business with a freaking decentralized computer program, the Ethereum supercomputer. Put my $5,000 up as a supply in Compound. It generated $3,500 worth of DAI, which is a stable coin, a cryptocurrency that's pegged to the US dollar. Compound has a 75% collateralization ratio, meaning if you put up $10,000, you can borrow $7,500, right? So I put up $5,000, I got around $3,500 back, took that $3,500, converted it to US dollars using crypto.com, took that $3,500 US dollars, paid for my half of the paint, and now I'm paying back that $3,500 loan. I've paid back $1,000. Whenever I pay back the additional $2,500, I gain access to my Ethereum once again. So this enables people that have been accumulating, hodling cryptocurrency, holding on for dear life. Let's say you got $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of cryptocurrency, or you're slowly but surely buying cryptocurrency now. Rather than having to sell that cryptocurrency, you'd be doing yourself a great disservice because the price is likely to go up very much in the future. Rather than selling that, you can gain access to the liquidity associated with that cryptocurrency by doing these little to no interest finance, decentralized finance loans. It's absolutely groundbreaking. The implications of this are yet to even be discovered. And essentially these decentralized finance applications like Compound and MakerDAO, they are going to give the legacy banking institutions a run for their money. And I'm super excited about it. And I would love to share more about that with folks in this upcoming webinar or during the course that we're going to do, and love to help people do this themselves.
I've been hearing about this process for a while and not spent time to learn a lot about it. Here's a question. So let's say you loaned yourself on the 5,000. You got 3,500 out, and then Ethereum went from 1,800 to $5,000 for one, which is a huge thing. Can you use that appreciation to pay it off, or do you have to pay yourself back with US dollars when you do that loan?
That's my question too.
Okay, great. So I bought the Ethereum at 1930, and right now Ethereum's over $2,600.
Right.
So what this enables you to do is to take out more of a loan if you wish, because now your collateral is worth more. But in order to get that Ethereum out of the smart contract, which it's locked into, you have to pay back the stable coin. So you take your US dollars, you purchase DAI or US dollar tether or whatever, and then you slowly but surely pay it back. And then once you've paid it back in full, you gain access to your Ethereum. Now, here's the big risk. Usually when people put up part of their house, for example, as collateral, the house has a relatively stable value, right? Well, one of the challenges, and this is a big risk, is you have to maintain at least that 75% collateralization ratio, meaning if you purchase the Ethereum if you purchase $5,000 worth of Ethereum and you get $3,500 back, but that $5,000 worth of Ethereum all of a sudden goes down to $4,000 and you break down less than that 75% collateralization ratio, then a liquidation can occur and other market players can come and buy out your collateral for a discount. You lose your collateral and you're left with the stable coin, which was worth considerably less than what your cryptocurrency was when you put it in. So I would recommend that folks that are dabbling in this to make sure that they're very conservative and they dabble small when you start for sure, and make sure that you over collateralize, perhaps even more so than the 75% ratio, and then just be a good steward with the money, right? And make sure you're paying it back in as big a chunks as you can. But there's all sorts of implications for business investments when you buy capital equipment, for example, when you're going to do a home improvement loan. There's so many amazing things that we can do with this. It's a game changer.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you went onto that story, because that's something I've been wanting to understand just on a theoretical level a little bit better. So you answered the question I've been wondering about.
It worked.
I have a question from the audience. So we're going to go into Snooker the Goose. Snooker the Goose is we get to ask geese anything, and usually it's a goose to goose thing. But I got somebody on YouTube, GFresh2000 says, any advice for people whose employers are mandating vaccines? ? Religious exemptions? ? I'm going to go first on this one and say that whether or not you get the vaccine is a very personal decision, and you need to weigh the benefits and the consequences, right? So if your employer is mandating it, which it appears they can do, you can try to fight back if you don't want it, or you can apply for an exemption. Every employer that I've seen mandate this has a different set of exemptions you can apply for. And they're usually in one of two categories, religious or health. And so if I were in that situation and I did not want the vaccine, I would absolutely file for an exemption if I need the job. But the bigger thing here is you're dependent on income from a source that has enough power over you that they can fire you if you don't get a vaccination. So I would definitely start upping my side hustle game so that if that does happen, you have something to fall back on if you decide you're not getting vaccinated and you need to leave that job. That's that mindset of getting income from different places than something that you're dependent on for a vaccine is going to be key if they keep going down this force area. Who wants to go next?
I think you said that really well, and I appreciate that you threw out that second component, which is like, why would you want to work for someone that's going to force a medical procedure on you? And when it comes back to the victimhood versus empowerment, it's all about how we frame things. So some people could be like, my employer is going to mandate a vaccine, woe is me. And you get all bent out of shape and all in this victim mentality, right? And then maybe you don't have the courage to start your own thing or to branch away, and you end up acquiescing. Whereas if you have this empowerment philosophy and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to fight it. If I can't fight it, this is my opportunity. This is the universe telling me that I need to find a new place of work, right? So I think it's really important for people to just like you said, the second component, like align yourself, work with people and work in industries that are in alignment with your values and your principles. We all owe that to ourselves. We shouldn't let ourselves down and have employment such that someone's going to force stuff on us. Like, that's really not cool. So I would encourage everyone to be aware of that. And even if that doesn't seem like it's something that's going to happen in your job right now, know that we are entering into whole new paradigms where now all of a sudden it's appropriate for industries and businesses and corporations to force people into medical procedures. This could escalate. There could be COVID 2.0, whatever, Lambda variant. Who knows what's next? Who knows what else? Monkeypox, chickenpox, fox in socks.
Yeah.
One fish, two fish, three fish, blue fish. I mean, It's a crazy world.
So there was some clarification. I won't get it regardless. I'm not dependent on the income. I just want to stick it to them. I would work. Fight it as you can. Let them fire you. I worry less about sticking it to people and more about choosing freedom. And
so you know that.
So if you say no, you say no. And if they fire you, they fire you. Then you move on.
John, do you remember the global human sovereignty? There is this act that I've been looking for and I can't find it, but because I'm sure they blocked it, whatever on the internet. But there's actually during Nuremberg. Okay, so the Nuremberg. Is it Nuremberg? Hang on, let me fact check this because they're going to be writing to everybody about it.
Okay, well, while she's doing that, John, I'm going to snooker you. What is your favorite way to cook a steak?
On the grill. I just got this big smoker. Here in Texas, we like to slow cook things on not an indirect grilling. But I got this big smoker with a nice smoker box, one of those big barrel ones. And you can do traditional charcoal grilling on it. So that's my preference. I like medium. My girlfriend likes medium rare. I like medium, maybe a little bit on the medium well side, but I still like a little bit of red in there. And I like good steaks. Like, it's something that's worth spending money on. There's some things where it's like, okay, I can just get a normal thing or maybe even more of a cheaper kind of product or whatever. But when it comes to meat, I think it's worth it to shell out for some high quality stuff. Not only for your own health, but for the benefit of the animal, right? Because oftentimes when you spend money for that small farm thing, or you get it from the farmer's market, even better, or ideally you do like a meat share with a local farm, it's better food and the animals are treated better for sure. But now that we have 10 acres, our local Freedom Cell, one of the guys was like, hey, all this supply chain stuff, I'm really starting to take this seriously. We should just start raising more livestock and meat ourselves. And I was like, well, I got 10 acres. I'm down for a cow.
I've got 5 mini bacons that arrived this year.
Yeah. How much work are the pigs? They're pretty laissez-faire, huh?
It's not too bad, but we're just to the point now where we'll start rotating them. Like, they're big enough. So I have a pasture that has been savaged by pigs. And so that part's going to be work bringing that pasture back. And that was a choice I made in the winter to just contain them. Because if I had let them rotate through my whole property would be mud right now. And so now we're going into a rotation, and that was bad planning on my part. I was, we've actually been talking about this in Tennessee. Like, there's this time, the mud time of year is a hard time of year if you have a lot of pigs, which is why you want to reduce your flock in the winter. It's also the best time to process them because it's cold outside. So that was a mistake I made. But
one challenge.
They're not bad. What?
Go ahead.
What, Nisi?
I was just going to say I found it.
Okay.
Found it.
So it is the Nuremberg Code. The code is in reference. It's in fact the code's reference to Hippocratic duty to the individual patient and the need to provide information is required. So this is just human rights. Look, vaccinations, especially this current one, is still a medical experiment. So they cannot force it. It is not forcible. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element or force of force, fraud, deceit, duress, which is what this is. When they're threatening your job, it's under duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements. This is just the first of the 10 points of the Nuremberg Code. That's what I'm reading to you.
So the question will be if it gets enforced, because that may be, but
you should be able to,
like legal challenges have not held up yet, right?
You should be able to use the Nuremberg Code to establish your precedent.
Well, and you can just say no. Like, you can say no and lose your job.
Well, you could say no and lose your job, but your employer would be discriminating against you. Also, you can also put out.
I'm just saying that using the Nuremberg Code, you might still lose your job for people because
You can also go ahead and just launch a discrimination suit against them if you would like, and use the Nuremberg Code to help you win if you care to do all of that. I mean, also, Nicole, me and you don't work for other people, so whatever. Like, we quit doing that. But
I am not requiring the vaccine of myself. That's true. Are you, John?
Well, I have 2 staff people, so they're in trouble.
Danger.
I always do this joke when
you're not a slave owner, though, are you, John?
I'm like, so, you're going to have to submit to a drug test. And if you pass the drug test and you're clean, you can't work for me. So no squares working here. I think there's a lot of tactical and strategic discussion that springs up in the Freedom Cell Network. And there's a lot of people that want to use the courts. It's just such a challenge because more often than not, the courts don't even follow the rule of law.
Right.
Whether it's Nuremberg Code, which is like this international agreement, or whether it's a state law or whatever, they don't even follow it more often than not. So it's like one of those situations where it's maybe there's value to exhaust all remedies whatsoever, right? And then there are opportunities where, like, there's this woman, Peggy Hall, I think her name is, and
she's the Healthy American.
Yeah, she's really cool. And she actually has helped some people to be successful pushing back against these lockdown orders and stuff. But you just got to be, that has to be your thing, essentially. And you have to have some money or be an attorney yourself. So I do think that there's merit in that, but it's ultimately comes back to, like, what's the best thing that we can do? And I think the best thing we can do is just goes back to the theme of this podcast, the agorism, the build the alternatives, the work for yourself, and there's so many of us now. There's no reason why we shouldn't employ one another. Like, both the guys that I work with, the guy and the girl, they're like-minded and they're friends and they're people that are in the community, right? And, like, there's so many of us out there. Let's do business with one another and let's, like, build our own little counter economy and our counter society eventually, because the existing status quo society is not very attractive and it's not something I want my kids to be growing up in.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, John, you get to ask any goose anything you want.
Neeti, who is your favorite Beatle?
Oh.
I assume you're a fan because they're one of the best rock and roll bands ever.
I mean, I guess Paul McCartney.
Good answer. Even though he's kind of
I would say Paul McCartney, probably because I've been able to go see Paul McCartney live, and I feel closest to Paul McCartney, I guess.
He had a good solo career, and Wings, Paul McCartney and Wings put out some great songs.
I got to see him during that time, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, back in the day?
Yeah, I got to see him, so that was why I'm saying when he came out solo, that was when I was able to go see him. It was in around 86.
Yeah.
It was a good year.
So yeah, yeah. Otherwise, I thought Ringo was cool. Like,
goofy.
Yeah.
John Lennon was a rebel, so much so that the FBI probably killed his ass. He was a total badass. I like Paul McCartney.
I wish I could have known him, right? Like,
yeah, if he was still around, like, they're like, we got to kill these, just like with Martin Luther King. They're like, and Malcolm X, they're like, we got to take these guys out because they're like literally going to end the war and like totally disrupt our entire program.
The comment on YouTube is the younger generation just said, who? Get on that.
They should look them up because
go play
if
some
they
music.
knew, I mean, if I kind of feel like, hey, John, what do you think? I think that the central systems gave those guys that power to kind of let people think that they were going to win, and then they took them out. Do you think so?
No, that to me sounds like this line of thinking that like they're all powerful and like people are like, well, Trump got in office, therefore Trump must be controlled opposition. But it's like they have weaknesses in their armor, right? And they lose often. So no, I think that they were genuinely like change makers that were charismatic, that spoke truth to power, and they were popular, and it was the right time, the right message at the right time. And I think they had to take them out. However, there is research about this shadowy institution called the Tavistock Institute that does a lot of social engineering and manipulation of culture. They are responsible for a lot of pop musicians and a lot of these like gangster rap and like this trashy music that kind of degrades culture, right? Especially the African-American culture. It kind of just takes it and like shifts it away from this powerful, beautiful thing to this gangsta crime, money thing, you know? And the Tavistock Institute apparently had something to do with the Beatles coming up to power. So I don't know, but I can't think of like how the Beatles negatively influenced the public as far as freedom goes or anything like that. I mean, they drove women wild, I guess, and distracted them from being good housewives or something at the time. I don't know. I'm not saying women should be good housewives, but
Nisi, you're muted and you can only unmute you right now.
She's like,
I see her laughing. She's full on belly laughing in there.
Well, no, because I was just saying that the reason I brought that up, John, was because I heard this conversation. I didn't know if you'd heard it, where they were saying that, and they, you know, they. I
don't know that it ever matters who they is, really.
Yeah, somebody. So there was this thing where, you know, they empowered these like you said, artists and some of these individuals. I mean, and I don't know, it's really interesting. Like all of a sudden this year, or within the past couple of years, of course, you know, when all the other chaos was going on, they, you know, when they started that Me Too thing, that it feels like they took everybody, all the way to Gandhi, they said was, you know, like working for them at some moment, and he was bought out and he wasn't actually doing all the things. And I'm like, really? Like how that, some of that doesn't even make any sense, because it led to the, you know, I mean, like he won against the British Empire for the, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I do think
I was just curious if you heard any of that. That's all.
No, I haven't. And I think more often than not, what happens is they play catch up. So like with cryptocurrency, for example, you know, early on in crypto, we thought that it would end the central banks. And now you fast forward, you know, 5 to 8 years, and all of a sudden the central banks are going to have their own central bank.
Of course they will.
Right. And so I think those in power, they're just so cunning and really brilliant at what they do. And they're always thinking, you know, 7 steps ahead, multiple steps ahead. A lot of people that are libertarians and like-minded folks, they're thinking about their situation and their family, or if they're like politicos, barf, they're like thinking about the next election. But these manipulators, social engineers, they are thinking about the next generation. They have a 100-year plan, and they pass on their plans to their children and through their tax-exempt foundations which live beyond them. So I think that they're just so far ahead of the curve when it comes to game theory and strategy and tactics, that when something like crypto comes about, first they're afraid of it. They're like, can we stop this? Okay, we can't stop it. It's not stoppable. So how can we leverage it? How can we co-opt it? And that's what they're doing with the central bank digital currency. So to counter that, we need to be thinking big and thinking strategically as well, and not just be freaking out and in a reactionary paradigm now and like all worried and worked up, but we need to think about what can we do today so that we can create more opportunity for future generations, our children, our children's children, to take up the banner of freedom and to build upon the work that we're doing. That's the kind of this big picture mindset that we need to have. We need to have an Illuminati of liberty.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And so that's where, when I was talking about creating these trusts, and trying to put your 10 acres, you get you actually get the title, which is the patent, and then you put it into a trust, and then you keep everything in a trust. And then if it's in a trust, it's sovereign. So when you manage all these things in that sovereign manner in which you speak, that those folks are doing, 100 years in advance. So, when you think about any of these big players, and you're all the folks out there, when they're like going, oh, that trust fund kid. Okay, you can call it a trust fund, but the benefit of the trust is the sovereignty that comes with it. And so if we want to operate like them, we need to start thinking about operating in that way.
Yeah, trusts can be a powerful tool for sure. Okay, last Snooker the Goose. Neethi, you get to ask anybody something.
Ooh, okay. Sorry, I was totally in a different mindset right now.
I know.
Just go off the cuff.
Off the cuff, whatever. One of us.
Music for these segments. That would be really cool.
Do 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 do.
Copyright infringement.
I
didn't say enough of it for that to be true.
Nicole, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you doing when you're roasting your coffee to make it so that it doesn't have as much acid to make our stomach hurt the way other coffee does, even if it's fresh roasted?
Oh, that was a softball to me. Hollow.roast.com. Anyway, so I choose my beans to be lower acid on purpose. And the Hollow Roast blend, which is the one you're thinking of, was designed because I get stomach acid problems. So we'll start there. But then because I'm air roasting and the beans aren't caramelizing against a hot plate with flame underneath it, they end up having even less of an acidic impact on the stomach. So a lot of people, that Hollow Roast dark or Italian roast really works well with stomach issues. The other one that works well is the Monsoon Malabar. Darker roasts have lower acid too. So a medium roast is more likely to negatively impact your stomach, even though the roasters are going to push you towards that. But if you roast it longer, some of the acid kind of cooks out. That's what I do. It's the style of roasting. I do air roasting.
Oh, because just for everybody out there, yes, I did switch over to Hollow Roast because I love a dark roast, and all the other dark ones. I thought that's funny that you say that the medium one would have more acid because
it hurts more.
I don't know why I thought the darker ones have more acid because they were the ones that made my stomach hurt. And then I learned that the alternative way to make your stomach not hurt from that is they water it down more, and then it tastes like crap to me. And so I couldn't figure out why when I have your coffee, I can make it the way I want because I want the rich body and the full mouthfeel, but not the stomach ache that goes with it. And so thank you.
You are not the only one who comes to me for that reason. I know somebody at Jack's workshop bought some coffee and she said, I'm going to try this because I haven't been able to have coffee in, 5 or 10 years. And she had the coffee and she said, oh, and now they're buying like 14 pounds a quarter from me.
Well, I
can have coffee again.
I know. I just have my morning cup. It's just my joy, and I don't need it for any other reason except for my joy, my personal. So thank you for that.
Well, I don't feel like we need to do the Around the Horn promo. We've got John's crypto class coming up, and what's your website? Again, I forgot.
BuildWealthOptOut.com is the webinar next Wednesday. BuildWealthOptOut.com. You go there to register. We'll get you the Zoom link, BuildWealthOptOut.com. And then if you want to do the full-on 2-day workshop, geared towards beginners. That's cryptobeginnersworkshop.com, cryptobeginnersworkshop.com.
Somebody's doing some SEO with some of these domain names, I think. Okay, Neethi, how do we find you?
Well, you can find me at www.farm2forkmeatriot.org. That's FARMTOFORK. Oh, sorry, Farm to Fork Meat. Yeah, FORKMEATRIOT.org. And come see us at the Rogue Food event on Polyface, actually on the 14th and 15th, John, which is why I won't be able to attend that workshop that you're doing because I'll be on the farm. I won't have any interwebs access.
And she'll be speaking, so she'll need to be speaking.
Is that Salatin's outfit, Polyface Farms?
Yeah. Joel Salatin.
We'll be on Polyface.
Y'all are all buddies with him? You're like, yeah, Joel, we go way back.
He's my backup farm. So I've been doing business with him for, I've known him for 12 years, and he actually wrote my intro for my book.
Cool.
And,
he's the man.
Yeah, he's one of my mentors.
He wrote some blog post that was like, I hope that I get COVID so I can get it over with. Like, everybody freaked out, and he's like all healthy, and he's like, what? What's the big deal?
No, it's true, right? Like, everybody's framing nature, and you have to participate and dance with nature. And he's like, what's up with this versus everything else? Like, they're all fearing chickenpox and measles and whatever, these benign diseases, because they're all benign. And so, look, I walk and operate in the laws of the universe and the law of nature. And so nature is never to be feared unless you interfere with it. And if you interfere with it, you should fear it, because it is going to come for you, because you can't be interfering with nature. And as we move into this new earth, then you will see it's going to be a more natural world. And that is, that's what I'm looking forward to. I can't wait. It's going to be bomb.com.
Well said.
Awesome. So if you want to support the podcast, Unloose the Goose, our website is unloosethegoose.com. But tell your friends about this podcast, share episodes you like, and that really helps us build our listenership here at Unloose the Goose, coming to you Wednesday live at 4 p.m. Anyway, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Honk, honk.
Honk, 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 honk.